I recently heard of this story where a Watermaker failure could have killed a solo sailor. And it's not what you think. It's not that the Watermaker just failed and he was left with no water. It wasn't that. He was actually prepared for that situation. Let's see what happened so we can take steps so it never ever happens to us. This is Starry Night, a courageous, plucky sailboat who has only one dream: to sail around the world and have lots of adventures. No, not like that. It's around the world, not through it. But not everything was going to plan. Starry Night was abandoned on the heart for 12 full years. But one day, he found us. My name is Paulo, and this is Caterina, and these are our two very overactive kids. After a crazy amount of work, Starry Night is once again ready to sail the oceans. So sit back, relax, and join us in this adventure, and we will all find out together where Starry Night will end up next. Imagine this scenario. You're a solo sailor, and your boat is a performance catamaran, and you're crossing the Pacific Ocean. So long distances. You'll be 3-4 weeks away from any land at some points. Tragedies usually happen in cascade. There is something that happens, and then another thing happens, and then 2 or 3 combinations of things have a dire consequence. Because this is a performance catamaran, you cannot weigh it down like you would a monohull. You just don't put a ton of weight on it. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So when you're cruising in a performance catamaran, single thing has to be pondered. And if you have a lot of gear, you're not gonna transport 200 liters of water extra from your usual tank. You know that you have limited water capacity, but you do have a Watermaker. And this is a scenario. This is not exactly the story I heard, but let's put this scenario out there. So you know that you have limited water capacity, but you do have a Watermaker. You never get your tank under 50%. So let's say you have 400 liters of water, you never go below 200 liters. Because this way, even if the Watermaker fails, you're fine. You have 200 liters of water, you're not gonna be taking any showers, but you're fine. In addition to this, you have like a 5-liter jug that you can take with you on a life raft in case you have to get in the life raft. Because you're a safe sailor, you also have an EPIRB, so you can call for help and activate the EPIRB in case anything happens to you and you have to get on the life raft. You have a plan to always have 200 liters of water, you have a life raft, you have an EPIRB. If anything goes wrong, you should be fine. These all look good. And you have VHF, for what it's worth. No Starlink and no satellite communications. What could go wrong? Well, here's what could go wrong and what did go wrong. In case you don't know, the way a Watermaker works is it has a pump, and that pump pressurizes seawater up to about 800 psi, and because of the intense pressure of the seawater outside of a membrane, the only thing that can cross the membrane is molecules of water, H2O, and the salt gets rejected with the brine, and that brine gets expelled out through the side hole. So you basically take seawater, you take the salt out of it using pressure and a membrane, and then all of that water, the fresh water, goes into your tank. In this situation, what happened was that the membrane didn't fail slowly like they usually do. Usually what happens is, as the membrane starts failing, you start to get water that has a little bit of salt in it. And that's fine. You can detect that the water has a little bit of salt in it, and you know it's time to replace your membrane. In this case, the membrane failed completely. And because he had the Watermaker going, And the Watermaker was not one of these moderns that have a sensor on the outlet and shut off if the water has too much salt in it. What happened was that for hours, the Watermaker was making water that was completely salty at a much higher rate than it would if the membrane were to be good, and it was putting all that water inside the main tank. So the 200 liters of water that you thought you had in case of an emergency, they're gone. Now they're all salty. And worse, your Watermaker is not working anymore. In this scenario, the only thing you need to happen next is for your EPIRB to fail, and you're done. You have only 5 liters of water from the water for your life raft, and you need to be very lucky to get out of this situation. Remember, you're in the middle of the Pacific. You'll be lucky to see another boat in the next 2 weeks, and you can't make 2 weeks with 5 liters of water, maybe. I don't know, maybe you can. Still, it just goes to show that, man, things can go wrong like in an instant. In this case, in this story, the person involved had 2 membranes. So he managed to use the other membrane to get the saltwater, the Watermaker back online, back working, and he got away with it with no issues. However, it could have happened. Anyway, I just wanted to put that story out there so that if you have a Watermaker or plan to have one, knowing this story, you will never make this mistake. You will never have your Watermaker making water directly to your main tank if you do not have water stored elsewhere. And the best way to do it is to have 2 tanks where you can use just one tank for the water that's being made, and then you transfer the water from that tank to the secondary tank. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Cheers!